Is the pen mightier than the sword? Who cares? It's sword dancing day. Let's cap the card at Saratoga. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, and welcome to another episode of Capping the Card right here on NYRA Bets YouTube as we dive into the 12 race card on Saturday, highlighted by, of course, the Grade 1 Sword Dancer. Now, before we get into all the good stuff and the picks and the plays, I want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. All right, well, listen, capping the card, it is pretty straightforward. I'm going to go through all 12 races on Saturday's Saratoga Day card, highlighted by the Grade 1 Sword Dancer. Have a lot of other great races on the card, some great maiden races, a lot of fun. Saratoga Oaks on the card as well. I'm going to give you my top pick. That's pretty self-explanatory, the horse I think that's going to win. Then I'm going to give you a value play in every single race as well. Value play in some instances is a horse that I think you should absolutely be including in your horizontal wagers, who I think is a legitimate win threat. Other times, a horse that maybe is a big price that I think is going to outrun their odds and really help enrich your exactas, trifectas. So I'll try to call those distinctions out as we get there. Weather for this weekend looks spectacular up here in Saratoga. So fast, firm. That's what you should be capping for. That's what I cap for. The only way we get through all 12 of these babies is if we start with the first one. So let's dive in. And we start things off with our friends in New York. The New York Breds, $45,000 optional claimer for 3-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. I like a little bit of a price in this race. You might go, Matthew, is 7-2 a little bit of a price? Well, you know something, it's a 6-horse race. So you take what you can get. And I think this horse trust fund is an interesting runner for Todd Pletcher with Kendrick Carmouche aboard. By the way, some of the jockey situations going to look a little bit different on Saturday. Why is that? Some of them, Junior Alvarado most notably, but Louis Size as well, going to be down in Virginia Colonial Downs for their big Arlington Million Day card. So as a result, you see a couple of different horses maybe pick up riders. Now, that's not the case with Kendrick, but just wanted to call that out at the start. There's a lot of speed in this race. If you look from the inside rail, certainly What's Up Bro kind of has to go. Yo Banana Boy has a lot of really great early speed. Dear Chairman, of course, I'm going to get to in a second for Linda Rice, has some good speed. I'm Wide Awake has a lot of speed. Factually Correct has a lot of speed. So there's a lot of speed in this race. Trust Fund is kind of the lone horse that doesn't need the lead and actually prefers to come from off the pace. It's an interesting horse for Todd Pletcher. It's got a New York bred. He's been really patient with this one. I mean, it's a 4-year-old, debuted as a 2-year-old and had almost a year and a half off at one point in between races, but been really patient with this one. Dropped it into the claiming ranks, 2 back, going 7 furlongs. Horse broke its mate, broke its maiden, but got the win against Open Company. Then stepped up last time against N1X Allowance Company, State Breds, and won pretty comfortably that day, going a mile and a quarter, or winning by 1 1/4 lengths, going 6.5 furlongs. I like the way this horse runs. I like the way this pace sets up for this horse. Sired by Practical Joke and, New York bred. And again, I just think this horse, was a stakes place twice as a 2-year-old. Now, granted, you could say those are up at Finger Lakes, but still, the horse has run some nice races, can come from off the pace. And I think here's the biggest thing. The horse's last 2 efforts, it seems like the light has really kind of clicked. And it coincides with Kendrick taking over. I don't think that's nothing. And it also coincides, I think, with just this course's continued maturation and progression. Remember, there was about 14 months off in between races there. And it took this horse a few races, I think, to get back into shape to some extent. Now you back up 83, 84 buyer speed figures. Those are solid numbers in this field. I think this horse now is no longer a fluke, because you could have looked at that 83 2 back and said, against Claiming Company, not going to be able to replicate it. Well, came back, not only replicated it, improved upon it against much better to competition in terms of allowance level state bred. So I like this one at 7-2 as my top choice. Now, as a value play in this race, again, a short field, so value is a relative idea. I think you could argue Trust Fund is a value play, but Dear Chairman's a horse that I wouldn't entirely dismiss. This is first time in Linda Rice's barn. That's always dangerous. And the horse is cutting back to 6 furlongs. I think that's a really good move for this horse. Now, granted, the horse broke its maiden going a mile and won last time out going a mile, but I think the cutback is actually beneficial. This horse has great speed, but very good foundation as well, and has won both times gate to wire, but that was, of course, going a little bit longer. I think Linda entering this horse in this spot certainly would indicate, pretty high level of confidence. We're getting a jockey upgrade from Chris Elliott to Jose Ortiz as well. So when Jose rides for Linda, good things usually happen. Certainly, they happen about 23% of the time over the last year in terms of them winning together. But I think this one can maybe find itself a little further back, maybe tracking the pace. And again, has that added foundation. If things get too hot up front, I think this one can take advantage of it. Now owned by LSU Stables. So I think this one at 6-1 could be a little bit dangerous in the first race. Well, let's go to race number 2 on the card, which is a $17,500 claimer going 7 furlongs on the dirt. And my top pick is the number 3 Rivalry for Jose D'Angelo. This is a horse that's dropping down a little bit in class, ran a claiming 20 last time, claiming 16 2 back, and won a claiming 16 N2L 3 back. And I think this is kind of right around where this horse is probably supposed to be. Had been trained by Ron Moquette, now is in the Jose D'Angelo barn. Jose's a trainer that I have a lot of respect for. Jose Ortiz up on the mount here. Blinkers are coming on this horse. Horse already has really good pace. I like the cutback actually from 1 mile and 1/8 the last time out to 7 furlongs. This is a horse that has never missed the board at that distance and also has a career victory going 7. So I like all of those things when you add them together. I think the blinkers are just going to make sure this horse is out up front. 3-1 seems like a very fair price. And again, I feel like this horse really fits at the 17.5 level. Certainly understood if people want to look at the number 8 Glint for trainer Linda Rice. This one's dropping in class a little bit from 30,000 N3L. Also cutting back a little bit, is 0 for 3, we should say, at 7 furlongs, which is one of the reasons I was maybe a little less bullish on that one at a short price. But really like the number 3 Rivalry. Also is coming out of races at Churchill Downs the last 3 times out. Excuse me. We have seen that be a very effective move from a handicapping perspective up here at Saratoga, is betting those Churchill Downs shippers. Now, a horse that shipped out of Churchill Downs last time and ran up here in Saratoga is my value play in this race, the number 6 Shipman for Joe Sharp. Joe Sharp is winning 28% of his entries at Saratoga, and it's just really doing well this year, 23% overall as a trainer. Now, he does have Lane Luzzy up on the mount here. Lane has yet to get a victory during the Saratoga Meet, which really just speaks to how deep and competitive this jockey colony is. But this horse, I think, also fits in this spot. Dropped out of allowance 50 last time and went down to a claiming 17.5 3L and 3L, and ran 3rd that day. Faded a little bit late, going 6. I know we're going a little bit longer, but the horse has actually run well at 7 furlongs in the past. So, granted, that was for trainer Troy Green, but I still think Sharp can get the most out of this horse. Second time now in Saratoga. I think this one could, at the very least, hang on for a piece. And so I think this is more of an underneath play, in my opinion. Not a horse that I would necessarily look to as a strong win contender, but this is a horse, 19 career starts, only 2 wins, but 7 other times hitting the board. So second 2 times and third 5 times. So this horse can run up into things, stay up in things, has done that against maidens, has done that against winners. So again, a horse that I think a 10-1 could enhance an exacta, trifecta in this particular race. Let's go to race number 3 on the card, which is a $90,000 maiden special weight for New York fillies. And this is going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. Tough race. Tough race. I mean, I can say that a lot about all these maiden races. I mean, you could look at Mike Maker's horse, Trading Trouble. That horse ran well in debut and finished second by a neck after getting to the lead. Should move forward next start. Very hard to argue with anyone who would want to use the number 7 Trading Trouble as a top pick. I think the number 8 Fancy Lights, the Galilean for George Weaver. I think that's a dangerous horse. I don't love the limited number of workouts there, but I do think that's an interesting horse, and interesting horse that was actually purchased as a weanling or a short yearling. So interesting pedigree, interesting horse to look at overall. So that's an interesting one to take a look at with Manny Franco, 4-1. But ultimately, like I said, my top pick is the number 3 Charlotte's Universe at 7-2 for trainer Mark Cassie. Jose Ortiz up on the mount. Obviously, I think Jose is going to have a pretty good day. This one ran in the same race as Trading Trouble, weakened a little bit in the final stretch, but I really like this one. Listen, this is a New York bred sired by Into Mischief out of a Bernardini mare. There's a lot to like there. This is also the half sibling to Donegal Surges, who is multiple times stakes placed up here in New York. And also is they have sibling to Surge of Pride, who won two of his first three starts, two of her first three starts, I should say. Lots of Trouble, who was a very precocious horse early in its career. So a lot of good first out, second out, 2-year-old pedigree here. I like this horse quite a bit. And I think you can expect this horse to move forward a little bit in the second start. Hey, you know who else is sired by into mischief out of a Bernardini mare? Sovereignty. Not saying this horse is Sovereignty, just saying. 7-2, I think is a good price. And I think this horse has every opportunity to move forward from that last start on July 17th. I like the horse got another workout over the track before coming back here. Now, in terms of my value play, the number one, My Boston Beauty, comes out of that same race with Trading Trouble and with Charlotte's Universe. This one's 10-1 on the morning line for Gary Contessa, Joel Rosario up on the mount. We're going from Katie Davis to Joel Rosario. No disrespect to anybody. That's a big jockey upgrade. This horse was off a step slow last time and really never got into the flow of the race until much later. Now, credit to Katie for keeping the horse to task and passing some horses late, finishing fifth. I think Joel's going to make sure this horse gets out of that gate very quickly. I mean, this is another Galilean. And they were pretty hot at the sales in the New York bred sales last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they run. But again, the inside rail is going to kind of force the situation there. Gary's not necessarily known for being a high percentage trainer made in second start, but I just think this one is going to run a better race than 10-1. Again, maybe more of an underneath play because you even have Bobby Medina has got a horse, the number 2 Run On States, who I think is an interesting horse who is going from dirt to turf for Yopon. That was a $200,000 sale. Dylan Davis up. I think that's an interesting horse coming out of Ellis Park. So that's one certainly to keep an eye on. But My Boston Beauty, like I said, it's going to be my official value play in this race. So I do really like Run On States quite a bit at 6-1, a horse you should absolutely be thinking about using in your early pick 5. Well, let's go to race number 4 on the card, $110,000 allowance for 3-year-olds and up, going a mile on the turf. And where are we going in this race? Well, we're going to go to a horse we went to last time, but I think this time might be the time. And that is Taraj. Taraj is a Belmont horse that made its first start in over a year last time out. Had been over in Europe for trainer Dermot Weld and had broken his main in a third start on the synthetic and then ran third in the Derby trials to Los Angeles and Euphoric. Then ran ran 10th in the Hampton Court, another Group 3 over there, Royal Ascot to JRB, King's Gambit. Not a lot of nice horses. Bottom line, a lot of nice horses in this horse's running lines. And then had a long layoff, came over to Mott, and now we're getting second start. Feels like we're in a little bit of a better place. Jose Lezcano up because Junior's down at Colonial for Arlington Million Day, but I think this horse is sitting on a nice effort, second off that long layoff. Mott's horses have been running well. He got another win on Thursday, I should say, the day I'm recording this. So that was good to see. I think this one's sitting on a nice effort. So I think 6-1, if you can get that price on Taraj, I think makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at a horse like number 6, Be of Courage, 7-2 for trainer John Bregman Jr. Love John. This horse, he's 1 for 36 this year. Now, granted, this horse is the one, but it's still, this horse does a lot of underneath finishing, things like that. White Palomino for Chad Brown is your morning line favorite at 5-2. A horse I absolutely loved as a 3-year-old last year. Love this horse. If I'm not mistaken, this horse might have been my top pick in the Pennine Ridge, and might have even been my top pick in the Belmont Derby. I forget if I picked this one or Trickery. I think I picked this exacta actually with Trickery over White Palomino. So I've been a big fan of this horse for a while. Getting his joy out of a flatter mare. Here's the thing: the horse hasn't run in 13 months, so I'm willing to take a shot against it first off the bench. I know how good Chad is first off the bench, but still, I feel like if you're going to beat this horse, now's the time to do it. Taraj is how I'm going to try to do it. Give you a value play in this race. The other Chad. Come on. I mean, how can you not love that angle? Jurisprudence, number 5, 8-1 in the morning line for trainer Chad Brown. Irad Ortiz Jr. up on the mount. This one breaks its debut at Laurel. You don't see Chad run many horses at Laurel, but breaks his debut at Laurel on the turf. Javion Toledo up on the mount. Then runs at a optional claiming 50 at Belmont at the Big A. Race gets rained off the turf. Runs on the dirt, and not surprisingly, you see the horse really regress significantly. Now the horse is getting back on the the turf, I should say. I think this one kind of bounces back to run a really big effort. I think going a mile is perfect for this one. That's the distance this horse broke its maiden at. And that horse didn't even have a great maiden trip as well. Now you get Irad up. I think this one could be sitting on a nice effort. The typical other Chad angle here definitely comes into play. But I think Jurisprudence at 8-1 seems like great value in this race if you can get it. So eager to play that one in race number 4. Going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And this one, the top play is a coupled entry. And as part of the reason why I have my value play as a little bit of a shorter price, because I'd be interested to see if both of these coupled entry horses end up running, because if they don't, then it changes some of the dynamics in the race. But one of the things that I am a big fan of is Looms Boldly. That's a real nice horse that has run really well over the time. It was a stakes winner last year up here in Saratoga, and is now getting dropped all the way down in class to a claiming 25 for trainer Brad Cox with Manny Franco up on the mount. This one finished 7th last time out in a stakes race at Finger Lakes and finished 3rd in the race before that at Finger Lakes against stakes company, New York bred stakes company, albeit. So this one, listen, the form has clearly dropped off a little bit, maybe not quite as good. Cox dropping this one down in the class and maybe trying to get this one out of the barn into somebody else's. But this is a big class drop. Maybe a little bit of a suspicious class drop, but it's good to see that Manny's up for this one, who's Cox is usually like first call in the winter up here at Aqueduct in New York. So it makes plenty of sense. 8-5. You combine this one with a Munson for Michelle Gianguilo with Kendrick Carmouche up. This one has won, 2 of its last 3 and hasn't finished out of the exacta or the trifecta since March 2024. That's right. This horse has not finished out of the trifecta since March 2024 and has won 6 races during that stretch. So this is a horse that is a win machine, and you got to take pretty seriously. Runs well, claiming 25 levels. So I think that that couple entry looks really tough. Now, if you want to try to beat the couple entry, or maybe it gets one part of it scratches, and you never know what you end up with, I think the number 5, Great Richie M at 3-1 for Rob Atras, who admittedly has been kind of close but no cigar in this meet. 12 starts, 0 wins, 5 seconds, but has Irad Ortiz Jr. up, who this horse rode last time, won up here at Saratoga for trainer Mike Maker. I always like when a horse gets claimed by another trainer and the jockey stays on. That always is that's good to see. I like when Irad stays on a horse, or any jockey stays on a horse despite changing barns. And so this one had been running against pretty solid allowance company, horses like Augusta Melody and Pinfire and Big City and Attaché, and some nice horses. And all of a sudden drops all the way down after coming up from Churchill to a claiming 16, wins for fun, wins by 7.5 lengths. Now Atras is stepping this one up to a claiming 20. I actually like this one's going up a little bit to a claiming 20, and makes a lot of sense. Sired by Fast Anna, of course, the sire of Torpedo Anna. But listen, Great Richie M makes a lot of sense. If you want to try to beat the couple entry, that's the one I think you want to try to do it with. So that was a little bit of my value play in this race. Admittedly, not much value, but a horse that I think, depending on what happens with the couple entry, maybe you want to take a look at and play. I think the number 3, Muazara at 12-1, if you're looking for a genuine value play, I think that's one to really consider. Last couple of times haven't been great, admittedly. Last time was in over its head, 2 back over a sloppy track. You look at what that horse had been doing in May and the spring and winter, pretty solid horse. It has a lot of early speed, hangs on for a piece usually. I don't know. You could do worse than potentially looking at a horse like that and a claiming 20. Muazara at 12-1. That's a horse that could be a big time value play in race number 5. Let's go to race number 6 on the card, which is a really good maiden special weight race for 2-year-olds, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And a couple of big pedigrees in this race. You could look at the number 6 Golden Tornado for trainer Danny Gargan, sired by McKinsey, sold as a yearling at the Keeneland September sale for $475,000, and is the half sibling to Verifier, who just won the Maxfield not all that long ago over the horse Smokin' Wicked, who of course came up here to win a graded stakes race. So Verifier, very, very good horse for Brad Cox and Resolute Racing. Perfect 3 for 3, and that one's career. Now, this one's the half sibling, like I said, sired by McKenzie, who's tend to be pretty good with first time out starters as 2-year-olds, 15% over that first couple of crops that he's had. So again, horse makes plenty of sense up top. Even though Danny doesn't usually get horses ready right away off the bench, he can pop every once in a while when they have the right one. Number 8, Sassmaster for trainer Todd Pletcher, another pretty good horse, $550,000 Curlin. Now, that's not that unusual of a price to pay for a Curlin because he stands for $225,000. So you're not really making that much more. But this was also purchased as a yearling. And has Irad Ortiz Jr. up. I wonder if this one is going to want to go a little bit longer ultimately than 6 furlongs. And so sometimes those Pletcher horses that I think are going to be pretty good, I think this one might be pretty good. Sometimes you like to see them stretch out a little bit beyond 6, maybe when they get to 7 or even a 1-turn mile. That might be pretty interesting to see what this one could do. But as a result, I'm going to go with a little bit of a value play as my top pick. And number 2, Oscar's Hope for trainer Tom Amos. This one's sired by Twirling Candy, out of the dam Hopeful Princess by Not This Time. It's the first foal from that mare. And Amos knows how to win first time out. He's had a good meet. He's won 24% of his entries. You get Jose Ortiz up on the mount. Those two together have been doing well, 27% over the last year, 29% at Saratoga over the last year. But here's what really catches your eyes. This one's been working out down at Churchill and really working strong. 47-2 gate work, 3 back, 59-4 bullet gate work, going 5 furlongs, 2 back, and then came up here to Saratoga and fired off a 5 furlong, 59 flat bullet, first to 35. As a 2-year-old, when you start seeing 2-year-olds firing off 5 furlong bullets, that's usually pretty impressive. So this horse has a lot of gate speed, pretty obvious by the works, and it's going to need it because it draws the rail because there's a couple entry. So Oscar's Hope's going to be on the rail. Usually like to avoid that, but at 7-2, you're at least getting a little bit of a price. A very competitive race. I would probably not toss Golden Tornado or Sassmaster for my tickets by any stretch, but I'm just going to try to get a little bit more value as my top pick. Now, in terms of a value play, senior lender. I want to say El Senior. I missed Senior Buscador. That's why. But senior lender for Claravich Stables, trainer Chad Brown, jockey Flavian Pratt. This is interesting. This is a $450,000 son of Volatile. Now, Volatile stands for 12.5. And pretty good first time out, 18% first time out 2-year-old starters. And is out of an unraced mare, and it's the first foal out of this unraced mare. So not a lot of dam side pedigree, but you look at that work 3 back, that kind of catches your eye. 47-3 gate work, going 4 furlongs, 5th of 44 that day. Not quite a bullet, but clearly showed Brown, hey, this one's got a little bit of speed. And I love that Brown didn't go back to the gate after that, just as giving this horse 2 kind of maintenance 4 furlong works. Again, something I tend to look at. Last week, there was a horse, Ornelia, for Chad Brown, who was sired by Gervin and sold for $1.1 million. Here's a Volatile, stands for 12.5, sells for $450, sold as $450 as a yearling. It tells you that horse must be pretty nice. So I'm interested to see this one. Chad knows how to get him ready first time out. 6-1 feels like a pretty good price on a horse that could have some serious upside potential. Well, let's go to race number 7 on the card. $75,000 optional claimer for 3-year-olds and up, going a mile on the turf. And for me, I'm going to go against a horse that made me a lot of money, Resilience, for trainer Bill Mott. Try and turf for the first time. You know, that race got rained off the turf last time, and the horse just didn't really run well. They've been trying to get this horse now, I've heard, for a while on the turf. I think that feels like a little bit of a last resort. You're losing Johnny V. You're picking up Manny. Interesting. I just, at 9-2, I'm not willing to maybe make that play. And so when you look at some of the other horses in this race, certainly you look at the number 7 exact estimate for trainer Chad Brown. Came up short the last couple of times out and hasn't really been able to stay healthy all that much. Does like to win, and 10 for 14 in this horse's career in the exacta. Has some nice races and handicaps down at Gulfstream Park over the synthetic, but certainly can run over the turf as well. Finished second to Cagino last time out, who was, a nice stakes level horse, and lost to Ballooney before that. Again, a nice stakes level horse. So has lost to some nice horses. That's a good bullet workout for Chad coming into this one with Flavian up. So I'm going to try to beat this one with the number 3 Depiction for Cherie DeVoe with Jose Ortiz up on the mount, mainly because this one's getting a pretty big class drop. This one's going from running in the grade 3 poker down to running against Allowance Company. Now, ran against Allowance Company 2-back and finished 4th, but was way off the pace that day, made up a ton of ground late, lost to a horse in Hershey and El Razine and Intellect. I have a lot of respect for all of those horses. Intellect, we just saw finish 2nd in a stakes race last week. El Razine's a horse that I think is going to outrun its odds in the race later today, in terms of on Saturday in the Sword Dancer. And then Hershey's a horse I've always been a big fan of. So that horse has come out of a nice race and finished 4th that day. Like I said, that was the first race off the bench in 7 months. Then goes to the grade 3 poker and loses to Donegal Momentum and Intellect and Major Dude. Again, Intellect comes back to run well in the next start. I just think Depiction's sitting on a nice one for Cherie. And this horse, has a little bit of a layoff, but really is kind of 3rd back in the form cycle for the most part. And I just think makes a ton of sense in this spot. So I like Depiction at 3-1. Is a horse that usually does sit a little further back and makes a big run, but Jose might be able to get this one maybe a little bit more involved earlier in the race with a little bit of with the way the field might play out. So interesting to see, but I like Depiction, like I said, as my top choice. Now, in terms of value play, the number 5, it's all coming together, is a horse that I feel like Lisa Bartowski, who has taken over for Phil Serpy with a lot of his horses, has been trying to get into a couple of different races and finally ends up here. I think you really want to key in on those last 2 races this horse ran. Don't really pay attention to the Kingston, which was not a bad effort at all, but was he got a stakes company in New York. Look at that effort back in March, 62 optional claimer. The one before that, $92,000 allowance N1X. 2, one was a victory and one was a near victory, finishing 2nd to Sherlock's Jewel, who came back to win next time out. This horse runs well against this type of company. So I think it's all coming together. It's 6-1, draws a pretty good post position, has good early speed, could go out there on the front end, but can track from off the pace. So I think there's a couple of things to like about this horse. I think in particular that effort 2-back showed the horse can pass other horses. And I think that's incredibly helpful to understand, because really prior to that, the only victories have been gate to wire. But this horse can pass horses. And Lezcano is up, gets Lasix back on. When you isolate the Lasix efforts, this is what I would tell you to do with this horse. Look at the Lasix efforts. 2nd by a neck, 1st by a neck, 3rd by 3/4 of a length, 1 by 1 3/4 lengths, 2nd by 1 1/4, 1 by 3/4 of a length, 3rd by a half. In other words, when this horse loses on Lasix, it barely loses. And when it wins nicely. So this is a horse that, again, when Lasix is on, I feel like you need to be on this horse. So 6-1, it's all coming together. I think a pretty nice value play there in race number 7. Well, let's go to race number 8, which is kicking off the late pick 5. And we will go and talk about this $100,000 optional claimer going 6 furlongs on the dirt. I badly wanted to choose my boy Little Knee. Little Knee. That's a horse I like, Little Knee. Little Knee is a cool horse. He's a horse that nearly beat Bookham Dano in the Jersey Shore last year, and then was stepped up to the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins. That did not go well for Little Knee, who then ran another listed stakes race on the turf for some reason, and finished 4th that day, actually, to Run Carson Run, and works for me, and a couple of nice horses. Then goes to the bench from October until July, comes back on a wet track and runs 2nd at Concrete Glory and beats Scotland. Real nice effort that day. I think it's sitting on a big effort potentially for Cassie, and could move forward from that 95 buyer speed figure last time out. I just couldn't get around Damon's Mound, who is now with Bill Mott after being with Michelle Lovell for a long time. Flavian Pratt picks up the mount, takes over for Junior Alvarado. And this is one who came back from a very long layoff, didn't run from December 2023 to January 2025. So comes back, wins right off the bench at Gulfstream Park in a stakes race, then goes to an open company stakes race at Delaware Park, finishes 3rd to Full Moon Madness in Bucharino. Then last time out runs in the AG Vanderbilt, finishes 4th that day in a 6-horse field, but you're looking against Bookham Dano, Mulligan, Nakatomi. We're now 3rd back in the form cycle, 4th back since that really long layoff. Like I said, Mott's been heating up lately, and this one's been firing off some strong workouts. I like the 35-2 bullet work first of 9 on August 3rd at Saratoga. So Damon's Mountain, a lot to like there. Little Knee, another one I like quite a bit in that race. Kind of see it as a 2-horse race. But there's a horse that I kind of like underneath in this spot, and that's number 4, Light the Way, for Linda Rice with Jose Lezcano up. Listen, this horse is not bad. I mean, this horse runs 90s buyer speed figures the last couple of times on the dirt and has legitimately good front end speed. Now, has been going longer and getting to the front as a result of that. But look at what this horse did against Starter 50 Allowance Company back in April at Aqueduct. Horse ran this distance and was coming from a little further off the pace and won. Now, does lose Kendrick, but picks up Jose, who's ridden this horse before, ridden this horse well before. So I just think this one makes a lot of sense as an underneath play more than anything else. Again, a horse that is 5 for 20 winning, but is 13 for 20 hitting the board. So a lot of underneath finishes there. I think makes a ton of sense on the cutback at 8-1. Let's go to the first of our 2 graded stakes races on the card, which is the race number 9 in the grade 2, Saratoga Oaks, going 1 mile and 1/16 on the turf. This one, again, is kind of it comes down to your opinion of 2 horses, Opulent Restraint versus Laurelin. Now, Laurelin's an interesting horse. Laurelin's undefeated, perfect 4 for 4. Looked really good doing it last time out at Penn National over yielding turf course. And beat a lot of really good horses in the process. Beat a horse like Candy Quest. Candy Quest came back to win the Ontario Cotillion, if I'm not mistaken, at Woodbine. And so it went from a 77 to an 88 buyer speed figure. Then you have a horse like Raining Flowers. Raining Flowers came out of that race, finished 3rd that day, nearly won the grade 3 Lake George next time out, finished 3rd by a neck, went from a 71 to an 89 buyer. So it seems as if there's some progression from this buyer that was assigned in that last race for Laurelin, which she got an 80. On the basis of that number, she's not quite fast enough to deal with Opulent Restraint. That said, that number could be a little artificially low, and maybe she actually improves significantly off of that. I'm going to try to beat her with Opulent Restraint, though, for trainer Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. And this one is an interesting horse because the horse's 2 career victories, in a maiden racing and then Chelsea Flower, both came from off the pace. Yet the last 2 times out, the horse has gone straight to the lead. Now, the horse might end up on the lead again here. Nearly got the job done 2 back in the Memories of Silver, finished 2nd to Laurelin that day. But I think could have every opportunity to turn the tables and also move forward big time in that Belmont Oaks. So I'm going to take a shot with Opulent Restraint. Chad Brown, 2nd back from a little bit of a freshening. Flavian Pratt up on the mount. Sired by Bowie out of a Creative Causeway mare. Again, from a pedigree standpoint, I'm not worried about the 1 mile and 3/16 at all with this one. I just don't know if this one wants to be on the lead as much as this one wants to maybe track closely from the pace, but being on the inside rail probably is going to have to be on the lead or cede the lead and sit that pocket trip. But interesting horse at 2-1. Now, in terms of my value play in this race, number 2, Sigh No More for trainer Brendan Walsh. It makes a little bit of sense coming out of a victory last time out at Monmouth Park at the Boiling Spring Stakes, where the horse made up a significant amount of ground coming from the back. I think Sigh No More is a nice horse, won a stakes race, won a Group 3 over in Europe back in October 2024. This horse is now 3rd back in the form cycle, picks up by Rat Ortiz Jr. for Brendan, who had been using Axel Concepcion. I think that's a big upgrade. And this horse is going to come running late for sure, but has faced some nice European runners, done well over there. I think has every opportunity to run a really nice race in the Saratoga Oaks and do so at a little bit of a price at 8-1. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention number 3, Go-Go Boots. That horse is really good. Even number 5, Totally Justified for Rusty Arnold. There's a bunch of really intriguing horses in this race. Speaking of intriguing races, let's go to race number 10 on the card, which is the grade 1 Sword Dancer, going 1.5 miles on the turf. And in years past, you might say, Matthew, there's 2 Charlie Appleby horses. Let's flip a coin and figure out which one we want to take. Not so fast, my friend, as the great Lee Corso says. Why do I say that? Because Nation's Pride and El Cordobes are the 2 Charlie Appleby runners. But here's the thing. Over the last 3 years, Appleby's only 4 for 23, about 17% here in the United States and North America. It's not a great number, and the ROI is only 73 cents on a $2 wager during that stretch. So He's not bringing over quite the same caliber of horse as he has in the past. I think that's a little troubling, quite frankly, when you also factor in the fact he's had some troubles at Royal Ascot in recent years as well. Listen, Nation's Pride's a nice horse. Has won a lot of races. Has won over nearly $3.7 million. This horse got embarrassed last time out in the Grade 1 Dubai Turf behind Soul Rush and Romantic Warrior and Maljoum. So was not particularly close that day. Two back, managed to get a Group 1 winner, a Grade 1 win over Holloway Boy and First Conquest. That was a nice effort, going a mile and an eighth. But I still worry about what this one has done here in North America recently. And the last time we saw this one in the States ran 9th by 5 lengths in the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. Hard to get that one out of my mind. I actually prefer the other Appleby horse, El Cordobes. That's a horse I think is actually kind of on the come up and that's getting better and better. Sired by Frankel out of a Sea of the Stars mare owned by Godolphin. So that one that I'm interested in seeing run, coming off a victory in the Group 2 Princess of Wales Stakes last time out. Now, in terms of my top pick, I went to, not surprising, number 6, Farbridge, 9 to 5 in the morning line. And Farbridge is a horse that I was really kind of skeptical of for a long time. And when this horse got taken over by Joel Rosario, the horse kind of became a little bit of a different horse. Joel's ridden this horse beautifully. And since taking over, Joel's won 5 of 7 starts on this horse. The 2 losses were the Breeders' Cup Turf last year at Del Mar, and then 2 back in the Grade 1 Manhattan, where the horse lost by a neck to Deterministic, who just won the 4-star Dave, and then Farbridge, and then Integration, who might very well be adding the Arlington Million to his resume this Saturday as well. So that could be a very key race, depending on how both Integration and Farbridge run back. But this is one Miguel Clement clearly has known well, being in his father's barn for a long time, starting in his father's barn, then going to Pletcher, then back to Christoph. Now Miguel's taken charge of the horse. Horse likes to make an inside move, but Joel seems to be able to just know how to guide this horse and navigate this horse around. Coming off a 101 buyer speed figure last time out, even if the horse regresses a little bit off this, I feel like is kind of the obvious play in the Sword Dancer. Now, in terms of where will I go for my value play, I'll go to number 7, El Razim, for trainer Todd Pletcher. This one finished second to Farbridge last time out in that Bowling Green. And as I mentioned, the race before that finished second to Hershey and ahead of Intellect, who I both have high opinions of in that allowance race, and improved upon that allowance race by running a 96 in the Bowling Green. If that horse runs a 96 again, let alone takes a minor step forward, the horse is absolutely contending for placement and might even be contending for win contender status. So I'm a big fan of El Razim. Feels like this is a young, up-and-coming horse. I always like those types. Not a lot of turf starts to his name yet. Only 8, and has not done much wrong. Hit the board in 6 of those 8 starts. So I like El Razim at 15 to 1. I think you can get some nice prices on it. Well, let's go to race number 11. And let's head and talk about a 7 furlong allowance on the dirt for a 3-year-old and up fillies and mares. Could go a couple of ways with this one. You could look at a horse like Practical Love, 3 to 1 for Bill Mott. Horse makes sense. Isolate the horse's faster efforts since coming back from debut. Has run well in those 2 races. You could draw a line through the turf races, and you might be able to even draw a line through that sloppy race as well. 2 back. Last time, 1 for fun. But now is facing winners for the first time, which is never an easy thing to do, especially from the inside rail. As a result, I really like the number 3, Alyeska. Alyeska for trainer Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt up on the mount. This one broke its maiden debut for Norm Cassie in November of 2024 and then went to Brown's barn, but didn't run again until June 5th, or July 5th, I should say, 2025, when the horse finished 3rd. Now, the horse won in debut, was running against this level of allowance company, but ran the type of race you would expect a horse coming back from a significant layoff to run. Kind of rushed up a little bit, made a little bit of an early move, then was taken back and just kind of jogged home. So those are the types of things you would come to expect from a horse coming back from a long layoff. second off the bench. Those aren't going to be the same sort of issues anymore. I think Alieska makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of our value play in this race, the number 5 Chatter for trainer John Ortiz and Manny Franco. Quite frankly, this one's just coming out of better company. Debuted over Slavi track going 5.5 last year as a 2-year-old, and then immediately stepped up and wired the field at Keeneland for a maiden special weight victory. Then went to the bench from October until January, ran in the Mockingbird, finished 6th that day to GW's girl, Sisyphus. Sisyphus. I think that's right. Sisyphus. And then, like I said, finished 3rd that day. Those top 2 finishers, GW's girl and Sisyphus, they both went on to win their next race. Now Chatter's getting Lasix for the first time. I think there's a lot to like there at 6-1 on the morning line. I would consider that a strong horizontal play in race number 11. And then race number 12, here we are. Finally, $95,000 allowance for 3-year-old and up. New York breds going a mile and an eighth. And we got a couple of horses in this race that are kind of interesting. You could look at a horse like Ortis at 10-1, who we'll get to in a second. Charles J at 5-1, who I kind of highlighted here as my top pick. You could look at Amplitude at 5-2 for trainer Chad Brown. I'm not 100% sold on that horse. Horse needs to come from well off the pace, and now is going to be facing winners. Hasn't really done much running against winners in those 2 races, though is now second back from the layoff. But again, I'm willing to try to play against this one at a modestly short price. And in my opinion, the number 10, Charles J, fits the bill. Sired by Cairo Prince and ridden by Irad Ortiz Jr. Irad rode this one pretty well last time and got up for 3rd over behind Mo Trump and Mizertonic. Horse always seems to run very honest to its odds, or maybe even a little bit above his odds. And so I like this one in this spot. Charles J, 5-1, a little bit of value, where I'm maybe a little bit more uncertain about some of these other shorter prices who I don't feel have great turf pedigree or great turf action. Now, in terms of a value play, got to go to number 9, and that's going to be the number 9 is Ortis at 10-1 for Lisa Lewis. His horse stepping up, admittedly, from claiming 15,000 at Gulfstream Park and doing so pretty easily against open company. So now we want to face this one against restricted company in terms of New York breds. But this one's buyer speed figures absolutely fit, and the horse can sit a few different types of trips. I like this one quite a bit with Joel Rosario up. Feels like a horse that might get overlooked on the board, and you're going to end up being maybe getting even more than 10-1, which would be interesting to see how the will pays eventually pay out. But I'm a big fan of Ortis. I think this horse is sitting on a monster race. So 10-1, that's my value play in race number 12. There we go. We closed it out. We capped the card. Amazing. Appreciate everybody tuning in for this episode of Capping the Card. Had a lot of fun. And make sure to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. We got so many great promotions. If you're watching this Friday, we got a $5,000 hit and split at Saratoga on Friday. So play that late pick 5. If you're listening to this Saturday, guess what? We got a double late pick 5. In terms of, we got a $10,000 late pick 5 at Saratoga. So you got to play the late pick 5 sequence there. You're going to single far bridge, build around it, add $10,000 in terms of maybe if you're the single ticket, you get all 10, but even if you don't, you split it up with the other people who add. But bottom line is the way to add wing. I got to do that. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to have a lot of great content over the next week or so. We're going to have a lot of Travers content. Kaylee Shapiro is walking around the barns right now, folks. She's walking around. She might get sovereignty on the stream. I don't know. She might get the horse. She might get Beaumont. She might just get the horse. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to search around for Magnitude. I heard he's running bullets. I don't know. Actually, he's not running bullets. He's running maintenance works, which makes sense for Asmussen. But that horse is going to be interesting. Baeza, Gosker, goal-oriented. I'll tell you something. Gosker's sitting on a race. Gosker's sitting on a race in that Travers. That's just my opinion. That horse is going to run big. I'm excited for that. And then we got Alabama. Then we got, Labor Day weekend. And, so many great races. The hopeful and Oh, the spin away, all that stuff. Man, I love it. It's a great time of year. It's like Christmas, but in the summer without thunderstorms, hopefully. All right. Listen, that's going to wrap it up for me on this episode of Cap and Card. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. All right. My name is Matthew DeSantis. Wish you a great, prosperous day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it is now post time.